Well, let's stand for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Okay, first item is the approval of today's agenda.
So moved.
By Joan, is there a second?
Second.
By Warren. Discussion. If not, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Carried. We have two items on our consent agenda. Is there a motion to approve those two?
Move to approve.
Thank you.
Second.
Thanks. Any further discussion? If not, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
As opposed, carried. County Board Forum. Joan, we'll start with Joan.
So last week I went down to St. Paul for a EMC Board of Directors meeting. Had some really robust conversations. Some staff changes. I don't know if any of you have had the opportunity to meet Kate Doohan, who's Mary Jo McGuire's assistant. So she has been hired to fill the economic development, workforce, and housing position.
Okay.
So, and I mean, so she's, worked in, is familiar with county government, and she's also worked with the city. She's got, a really broad background, which I didn't realize that she had. And she fits, has been at a lot of our board meetings and stuff just as Mary Jo's assistant, but I think she's gonna be a really good fit for that. And we had hired a new finance accountant towards the end of last year, and Sue has actually still been helping out these first few months of the year, just to kind of gives more support to our new accountant that we hired, because it's just she was really thrown in to like the end of the year stuff, and just to get the basic of day-to-day operations. Then there was some discussion in regards to the tribal bills that are down in St. Paul. Galswick, our president, did bring forth again about where White Earth has stated that AMC is in support of the bill, which is not true. AMC has not taken a stance on anything. And Tim Sumner has been appointed to the board from Beltrami County to fill out a NACO open board position. And so he said, even for him with the Red Lake one, he has not come out, on either side, because he said, part of his district is the tribe and part of his district is not tribal. So, he said he's just trying to learn about a lot of things too as this is going on. So, and then we had Jeremy Drucker from the governor's office gave an overview on the proposed waiver for the 1115 Medicaid reimbursements, because this is one thing that a person that is eligible for Medicaid benefits, once they are incarcerated, they no longer are eligible. So these expenses fall into the counties, and so we've been pushing, even at the federal level, to get that changed. And actually the state is working on some legislation, and it would cover the 90 days prior to the inmate's release from jail. That expenses would be covered. They're actually looking at just doing kind of a pilot project initially with 10 facilities. 3 of them would be state facilities, and which one of them would be the Shakopee Women's Facility. 2 juvenile facilities, 4 that are adult local facilities, and the last one would be either a tribal jail or a jail that has a high inmate number of tribal members. So, at least there's some, talk and discussion going on of trying to get that changed. Spent a lot of time in regards to the tax forfeiture bill. Still, I mean, there's the good, bad, and the ugly in that bill right now, and some of the ugly has gotten better than what it was initially. Some of it still is, it's going to be a hard.
Is it primarily regarding the dollars that would be required for?
Yeah, a lot of it is the dollars. Also, some of it is just the requirements. And surprising the number of legislators that are looking at it as a county bailout, even though the counties actually never take possession of the property. We just have it, in in trust for the state. And they still keep referring to it as a taking, which it's the, they're in that position because they didn't pay their taxes. So, there's just a lot of discussion on that. And, they're trying to put like a very short time frame on it. So actually, kind of like the way it is now, I can't remember. I think
I
it's
think
like,
it shortens it by a year.
well,
Process.
one of the key things is like when you take, or when the property becomes forfeited,
Mhm.
that you would only have like 30 days to try and sell that property at assessed value, which would not allow, like, where for us, a lot of the properties need to be cleaned up, because there's vehicles, there's garbage, there's a lot of environmental things that are with these properties. So that, of course, that 30 days does not allow us to clean
Doesn't
that up.
allow you to do much of anything.
No. So then if it's not sold, then you've got, I mean, you still have control that you then could go ahead and do the cleanup, or, to, and then also too, with a lot of this, with the costs that we do to clean up the property, we are not able to be reimbursed for.
Even with the new plan.
Mm-hmm.
Oh.
So, there's just, like I said, it's the good, bad, and the ugly.
Oh,
So,
it's very complicated.
yeah. Mm-hmm. Yeah. And then also, there was also discussion in regards to the pensions, like with dispatchers and probation and parole, and they also actually have included county child support agents. So, and looking forward, June 6th, our district meeting, Red Lake County is the host. And then we will be the host again for the fall one in October 17th. So you can put those on your calendar. So like I said, I mean, that was a very robust meeting, a lot of discussion. I think we could have sat in that room for another couple hours, but we were on a time schedule. And then yesterday I had education and training committee, just went over some of the trainings that we've been putting forth recently. And actually, I think like Thursday is the cyber security one in St. Cloud. And I think Levi was going to that. So, but when we did the assessment last year, one of the things we heard a lot about was succession planning. So, July 31st, it's going to be a webinar and just kind of, starting out on getting information out of how to look at succession and how, it can work within the different departments and stuff. And then there's also going to be another one in the middle of August in regards to the ability to convince people for change. Some things, work fine the way they've always worked, but, some things need to be changed. And, sometimes people just need that little nudge of, how to do it and stuff. So, I think that's enough for me.
Mark.
Just one item. I mentioned it last Tuesday. Kevin Clipping up in my district. He's along the Red River, about a mile south of the Polk County, Marshall County line there. He's got a real problem up there, and I haven't spoken to Jody, but I did visit the property on Saturday, and he showed me it's quite astonishing the way the riverbank is sliding, and he's 100 yards from the actual bow of the river, Red River, but he and his farmer neighbor last fall brought in additional dirt and stuff trying to secure up the dike area. They thought they had it under control last fall. This spring now, it's actually moved again, and it's taken another 10 feet of his grassy area. It's within 5 feet of his corner of his garage. His doors in his house aren't shutting properly, and that's happened all over winter, and so forth and so on. He did attend a meeting yesterday up at the Middle River Snake watershed. Mr. Umdahl had indicated that there quite possibly could have been some money available for a buyout, and apparently that meeting did not go well yesterday. But Jody Beauchesne has been up there last week and looked at the yard, so forth and so on. And like I mentioned last Tuesday, I visited with Jake a little bit, and hopefully we can find some money someplace in some of the programs through the Red Board or somebody for flood mitigation to get them bought out, because to me it makes absolutely no sense, even though there are dollars for fixing the dike levee system. It doesn't make sense and to fix it when his property is already unstable and the house is moved already. So he's exhausted. He's lost his family over this situation. He bought the property in 18, and I think this property was actually having problems before that. And the levee, it appears in his paperwork, the actual levee itself was constructed by the Corps of Engineers back in the 70s sometime, when that whole corridor up there was building levees, and then by a court order they were forced to reduce the level of the levees by 4 feet or whatever it was at that time. So I feel sorry for the guy. He's got a real mess up there, and somehow we got to find help for him someplace in some program or something. So just an update on that. So
Bad situation.
yep.
Tuesday afternoon, Joan and I met with Chuck and Lisha. We're on the personnel committee. and kind of getting a start on staff negotiations. Discussed health insurance options, and we'll see what those look like. But a little nervous about that and what that percentage increase would be. And selected a couple of dates in June and 3rd and 17th. Hopefully, we could meet with at least one of the, what do we have, 8 unions? Start that process for the next 1, 2, or 3 years. And then Thursday, I was down in Moorhead for the Laurel. That's a regional library executive committee meeting. And we reviewed the preliminary budget. And the biggest factor there is we're going to be, or the regional library, Laurel, will be moving into the Moorhead Library and trying to estimating what the new furnishings for that is going to be. So that's affecting the budget a little bit. But in our review, and had something to do with some of the additional legislative dollars that we're getting now. We have over 60% reserves, and that's ridiculous. Our audit, recommended 30 to 50. I would like to get that closer down to 40. So we decided to reduce the preliminary budget down to a 1.7% increase and try to use some of those reserve dollars for the furnishings. It's more of a one-time expense, and hopefully that will work. And then we're also beginning the negotiations for staff with that group also. And I think that was it. I think I talked to Chuck lady. Might have questions of, on the Crookston shopper, all the ads for social services positions. And I think that might be on a contract or something, but it probably could be a little bit more. I understand they're looking for staff, but we need to be a little careful with expenditures there. That's all I have.
Okay, I didn't have much MPO meeting last Wednesday, and it lasted a total of 16 minutes. We had one action item. It's the all-time shortest meeting that I know. So that was nothing to report there. I had a constituent calling about the construction project that's going on out here and all of this parking space that's being taken up by equipment and materials and such. And he thinks we should declare several, probably more, parking places of a shorter duration for people coming in to renew licenses and such. Like he ended up having to park way out on the street some, I don't remember where, but he thinks we should try to create some 15-minute spots out there.
It was during the construction or
Just during
just
this,
a regular?
just during construction.
All right.
And I think I was looking at some of the construction pickups this morning, and I assumed they were from employees of the construction firm, but parking in the lot too, and they're taking up space, so I didn't think that would be the greatest thing going forward either. Anyway, give that some thought if we can. Another one, I had a constituent, well, Mike Powers, who is chair of the County Planning and Zoning Commission, called and was quite upset because at the last meeting they didn't have a quorum. And he said it was really bad because if people had put construction projects, on tap for, proceeding with whatever action they took there. And he couldn't do that. And he said that our discussion was we thought we should have some alternates, maybe. And each of us commissioners has an appointment there. We could have an alternate maybe, or some of the other groups. I know there's at least one member of that commission that goes to South every winter, and there may be more, but in that one there was didn't have a quorum, so they're going to have a discussion at that on that subject at their next planning and zoning meeting.
This Friday.
And so we'll have to see where that goes, but I think something should be done there to back that up so it doesn't happen again.
Yeah, I mean, usually, Jake is very good about making sure that there are
Mhm.
Yeah,
forms.
that was kind of surprising to me. It's the first one
Ever. that-
ever.
Yeah,
Yeah,
So, maybe we don't have to
overreact.
go
but-
overreact, but we certainly should make sure that if we're not going to be there, we have someone who,
mhm.
not
Saw
a bad
backup.
idea. Yeah.
Yeah, I don't think it would be that hard to come up with and have a backup person. You'd have to get somebody to agree to do it, of course.
Mhm, mhm.
One of the members represent different groups and
But then, of course, there should be some assessment made before the meeting, whether you're gonna have a quorum or not.
yes.
There's 7 that sit on that board.
Well, there's
Oh, there's more now.
five from the commissioners. And then there's the two lake groups
In the cities,
Cities.
and the two cities
townships.
and the townships.
There are 11.
Must be, there's quite a few.
It might have been, listening to Sam here, because it's the first I've heard of it, that going into the meeting, they thought they had a quorum, and then somebody called in late, so I'm not even sure an alternate would
Mm.
Would help.
help you with that
Yeah.
situation. It's probably just a good message to the members that, hey, we need you
Yeah.
to.
Mhm,
If you say you're going to be there,
Yeah.
right. Mhm.
I suspect everybody would agree to that. Sometimes it's not, there's a lack of awareness of just what everybody else might be up to.
Mm.
and it's a busy time too. And
Yes.
we've got 3 hours of
To sit there. and-
hearings on Friday morning.
Is
Yeah,
it,
yeah, all of that stuff from the last meeting is moved on to this agenda.
And it's a busy time for
Mhm.
construction.
Yeah, a lot of permits.
is it possible to suspend the rules, if you would, to,
Oh,
it's gotta have
gotta
a
have a
quorum.
Yeah, I think there were only 3 or 4. I don't know if we got the minutes with me, but yeah, it was
Well,
unusual that few people were in attendance. We'll put it on the agenda for Friday morning.
Okay, that's enough.
See the people who weren't there. Thanks, Warren.
One thing,
Yes.
not know when the meetings are helps.
especially when you're new and you don't experience these things before, but I got an email from Douglas Frankie from the DNR, and I forwarded this to Chuck. Did you know about this before this?
You're gonna have to remind me what the
Oh, this
issue
is
was
about the
again.
Danks property, all of
Oh.
the things. Anybody remember that? In 2015, apparently, the
Yeah.
board, this board of commissioners put forth a resolution, and now there has to be adjustments to that resolution from 2015.
I think it's one of those properties that goes into land trust or
Yes,
conservancy
because
or
they're
something.
donating it to somebody, us, to the state.
Well, they would donate to the state, I
Yeah.
think. Or it gets, nobody can touch it. I
Yeah.
don't know whose it is after that, but
No. So anyhow,
I
but
haven't
there's
heard anything since your email.
400 and some acres. But the county board here in 2015 put forth a resolution, but he's bringing it. I didn't know what to do with it. Why would he send it just to me? It's in my district, I'm assuming. That's why the DNR sent it just to me.
Yeah, if he gets in touch with you again, forward it over to me and
Yeah. He hasn't since.
Yeah.
I did send him a note though that you would be the contact. I mean, this is all new stuff. This is
And then something else that doesn't happen very often.
yeah,
Greg Whitseth have to take a look at this. I
that's
would
he's on
guess.
this list too. That he has looked. This was from before he had looked at it. The whole
Right.
county.
and even Sam, I think we all pay attention to it, but I think the only decision it may be, trying to remember if it's one of those things that the board can say, hey, we don't want to do this. I think you went down to St. Paul once
Land
on these
Exchange Board.
issues.
Mhm.
Um,
Yeah, because that was with Fish and Wildlife and their agreements, it's perpetual. There's not an ending date. And I think at the time, our board we wanted to see an end date to the easement because, things change down the road. And, because one
mean-
generation decides to do something doesn't mean that, 2 generations down the road in that same family are gonna agree.
Well, that's 9 years ago. I wasn't around 9 years ago, sorry. But
We'll deal with
But
it
he-
when it
it
comes
comes,
up.
I just wanted to bring
I
it to
wasn't either.
everybody's attention.
I was new. But I do remember there.
Joan and Warren, yeah.
All right,
All right.
that's all I have.
Okay, if not, Sarah Reese is on next.
Good morning, sir.
Well, thanks for all that reading material.
You're welcome.
You want the,
All right. So, just as a reminder, we've had a series of things happening with our nurse practitioner position for our clinical services. This is specifically related to our sexual and reproductive health services. So, back in February, well, let me back up even a tad further than that. Last summer, we worked on updating our contractual agreement with All True Health System at their request. So, we did that. And so that term changed to a 1-year term. Fast forward to February, we received a notice from All True giving us the required 30-day notice to terminate their agreement for our advanced practice provider services, essentially our nurse practitioner services. And so after that, I came back to the board on February 20th requesting to fill internally that position. That position previous to the contract had been a union position, and so we felt it was important to offer it as part of our internal staffing. The catch of that is because of the change to the contract, we have another contract for Norman Monoman Public Health with a Sanford provider. And so previously we had one provider that served both health departments. And so we weren't able to advertise that position at a 0.8 FTE like we previously did. So that's why the FTE was lower. And you just never know who's out there. People retiring, people wanting part-time work or whatever. So we did put that position out, posted for that position. And unfortunately, I had one call from someone, but they ended up not putting in a application for that position. And so after that, I had a conversation with Riverview Health. It makes sense to partner with Riverview because our primary clinics are in Crookston and in East Grand Forks. We don't have in-house clinical services in McIntosh, so that's pretty far away for Essentia to partner with us. It doesn't logically make sense in terms of time and mileage. So reached out to Riverview Health, and they were interested in partnering with us for the clinical services. So I'm recommending that we partner with them. The contract looks very similar to the one that we did with Altru in terms of the roles and responsibilities. It's the same rate. We did it for 1 year with a renewable term. So there's language in there if it's not a good fit for each of us to get out of the contract. And there's also language to renew it if it is working well. The one thing we did do for now is our separate from this contract. Our All True contract has the medical consultation role built into that. So that is continuing. And that role is required by Minnesota statute that we have that. So just to kind of make sure we're on the same page that we still have a contract with All True for our medical consultant. That's Dr. Duncan. And then we will have this new agreement with Riverview Health for an APP. So that is my request today. Essentially switching from one health system to a different.
Will they provide the same provider or different providers that they're rotating through?
The intent right now is to have the same provider for continuity.
Sure.
And we are also open if that provider is gone or has a leave of absence or something of that nature, we're open to being someone else. But there is a lot of nuance in terms of our state and federal requirements. So it's easiest if we have some continuity. So that's the plan, at least initially.
gives a little leeway is all I'm.
Absolutely. Yeah. Our contract is written not with a person's name. It's written in terms of the licensure to give us that leeway. So looking to approve the professional services agreement with Riverview Health today.
Is there a motion to proceed?
So moved.
Joan, is there a second?
Second.
More discussion. The contract with Altru then is being amended? Is that what's
So the
happening?
contract with Altru is written with 2 appendixes. So their letter simply states that Appendix A will be null and void and to continue with Appendix B.
And they didn't have, they didn't have that option from Riverview to fill that appendix B.
For right now, we stayed with Dr. Duncan because that relationship is going well, and they did not put that in their letter of to stop services. So for now, but we did present that to a review as a future option.
Oh, sure.
The it's very interesting. The medical consultation services role is actually being re-examined by the Minnesota Department of Health and the local public health association. Currently, the language requires it to be a medical doctor, and there are some local public health agencies, especially in rural Minnesota, that are interested in having a nurse practitioner or a physician's assistant. The medical association is not supportive of that. And so those are conversations that are happening because the amount of MDs available in rural Minnesota continues to be very small. And sometimes, not always, but sometimes nurse practitioners and physician's assistants have a little more wiggle room in their schedules. So allowing that community piece to be more alive. And so we'll see what happens with that statutorily, but that's a side note.
And just so I'm clear, with the Altru contract,
Mhm.
did that expire? It didn't
It has
expire.
not, it did not expire.
Two financial.
Two financial separate things. Yep. So they provide us a 30-day notice to terminate the part of the agreement for the advanced practice
You know
provider.
exactly what you're going to be
Correct.
paying.
Yes. Yes. And in the Altru contract that we currently have, it lays it out. The payment structure is by the different appendixes. So we know very clearly what piece has ended and what piece is continuing.
And does that have an ending date?
It is at the end of July. It is,
This year?
yep, at the end of July. And that's because we did it on a 1-year term, but it can be renewed as well. So,
Does it have that board approval to
What
be
was that?
renewed?
we need to have, I can't remember if the Altru one has the renewable language in it, if it's a renewable term or if it needs to come back to the board.
Okay.
It's a good question. I'm not entirely sure what that language, every
But
contract is so
the
different.
Riverview one can be
Yep.
continued without
Yep.
board approval.
The Riverview one, we wrote it for 1 year, and then the language in there is that it's renewable if
Both
we're all on the
parties
same
agree.
page. That's typically how we write them, is that it's for 1 year and then it's renewable, assuming that all is well.
But the
Yeah,
Altru will come up.
Yeah,
that'll
because
come
it
up
comes up
pretty
because of
quickly.
availability of providers. I'm
Yes.
sure. And I
Yep.
think that's where the 1-year commitment
Oh, okay.
is decent because
Yes.
there's a lot of turnover in providers.
Yes.
Always.
Constant. Yeah, it's pretty standard healthcare language to have it be 1 year renewable. So, which is what I'm like 90% sure that's what the Ultra one says as well.
Okay. Other questions? If not, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Motion carries.
Thank you.
Thank you much.
Mhm.
Karen is up next.
Did you see that? Okay.
Make a quick fix. It's real quick.
see that on my screen every once in a while, and what the heck is all that?
Good morning.
Good morning.
Morning, Karen.
I'm here this morning to request a replacement for a family-based service provider. We had a resignation from a worker in our East Grand Forks office who had been with us about a year and a half, and she's moving out of town. And so I'm looking for board approval to fill a family-based service provider position and to fill any internal subsequent position vacancies occurring because of this action.
So move.
Warren, is there a second?
Second.
Second by Mark. Any other questions of Karen? If not, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried. Good
Thank
luck.
you.
Time for a refill.
Yeah, we'll take
I'll
a
get
5-minute
you
break here. So we're
All right.
Ready to go.
Okay, great. Today we're gonna talk about our 23 financial info. First up is this, what do we even call it? The blue bar report. This is a budget to actual revenues and expenditures. Includes all lines that were budgeted. Maybe not just, you probably already heard this, but I like this format where we have expenditures first on the left and then the what came in over on the right, and those columns to the right with the budget to actual comparison. It's organized by fund. So first up is our Fund 1 General. And then what we, in the accounting world, we call these departments within a fund. I mean, they don't they don't necessarily relate to a department head per se, but that's just the terminology for the breakout there. So we got the general fund, the main one first, and you can review individual departments for their results relative to the budgeted dollars, or just look to the bottom and find the entire fund, how that went. This first one, though, being general, is kind of a combination of a lot of things, so it's probably better to to talk to some of the detailed level, I guess. I don't know if anybody has any questions. Feel free to try and slow me down or whatever. Stop in with those. I haven't had as much time as I might have liked to review this, just because we're so short-handed over there. I can point out a few things, I guess.
Yeah, go ahead.
I tend to look at the ones that are well over 100%. Obviously, court costs often is. It's really hard to budget that, what that is. We pay whatever they send us. We pay that bill. Thankfully, this year that one also got some unexpected income, so you can see that it's way over budget for revenue. It had a special money that came in. And Chuck can explain that if you need to know it. I know it went there. That's all I know for sure. Next one that caught my eye was the auditing our Department 45. That's just where we put the central cost of our external audit. We have the funds that they're able to identify as having been, used up certain hours. We have those funds paid back to this Department 45. The reason why that's significantly over budget, or the main reason, is simply that their OSA's bills for 21 didn't come in 21. They came much later. The bills came much later. And so the reimbursement portion of that over in the right-hand column is also higher than expected. Well, I noticed almost double budgeted elections, but similarly, that's very hard to know what's going to happen in that one. But
That would have been a special election.
there you go, special election that didn't happen.
No, it did happen.
I mean, which
To fill Jerry's.
we didn't know it was going to happen. Yeah,
Yes.
to fill Jerry's. That's what the wording I meant to say. Yeah. Does that make sense? And then I would say, if we move on down to the elephant in the room there, in the unallocated category, our 149.
What items are in that one?
All kinds of stuff. All the general tax goes there, as well as the disbursement area, though, is like all the money that went out for ARPA. The ARPA money that left the county or went to other funds came out of there, and that explains this giant offage. And the other thing that comes in and out of there, which we're going to move out of there, is the deed tax. If you just bear with me for a minute, let me grab my note that I had on that, so that I'm not just speaking off the cuff here, but okay, so coming in, we have property taxes, in particular in the various aids and credits that come from the state, and some of those come in lieu of property taxes. Those are the big ins on that thing. And the big outs are generally remittances. Like, for example, there's about 600,000 in deed tax collected over here and on its way back out to the state. We just keep a little bit of it for the county. And that's one that needs to get removed from that fund because it just confuses things, but I got to make sure we work it out right so that I'm not confusing Sam's people or whatever when we do it.
There's still some ARPA funds to be expended, so that will show up as, will that show up as a budgeted item or not in 24?
generally not, I would say, right? Generally not, in this fund for sure, not. So, yeah,
I'm not sure what ARPA funds came out of this fund except reducing the levy.
yeah, well, that's in 24, you have a $500,000 of ARPA to reduce the levy. This is 23 now, and we gave $600,000. Well, I don't have the exact detail, but about 2.5 million of this overage that we're seeing on the screen there is just the ARPA dollars. There's no budget for the ARPA dollars. They're on their way out. 1.2 million was transferred over to our highway fund per
Right.
budget, right? Yeah, and they still have another 400 or something to tap if they wish. 600, that must be, sorry, I don't have it in front of me, must be the what went to solid waste, I believe. 600. Solid waste got a nice big number of ARPA funds. It's kind of, this is January of 23, I believe that's it. And then we have City of Climax got almost 600,000.
For the water?
585,000 rounded up, yes. And then I show to our own departments, those ones that we've been bringing up quarterly where they bought supplies and have some
Public
payroll.
health, social
That
services.
totals about 125 of this big number we're seeing. So we have, like I said, 2.5 is ARPA disbursements, money that came in, for a couple of years back. And so that's why it wasn't budgeted. We didn't know what we were going to do with it for sure. So that's why you see that big variance there. And then, like I said, about 600 of it, the expenditure relates to deed taxes collected by us, gone to the state. And then there's about a couple hundred that pertains to that 2176 school district thing. I had to put that transaction somewhere, and it shows up here. But
So at the end of the conversation, your blue column's 119% increase. That would be, basically, we'd be with the ARPA dollars and everything in there, we'd be pretty close to 100%.
yes. Now this includes the ARPA at the 119. Like you say, 119 went out, 115% actually came in.
Which line are you on?
The very bottom one, the totals, very totals.
So we looking, he's talking here, this is the grand total for the whole general fund. Although I have to say, and I was gonna right away, but I did pull anything to do with that capital project out of both, out of here entirely. I just found that was way too confusing for me to even to try and look at that. It would have gone from this Department 113 facilities. And since that's kind of this multi-year project, any transfers and expenditures of that just seem to confuse the issue. I'm gonna have to look at this one. And that deserves its own report anyway. It's a 3-4 year project, and it has a running balance. And I talked to Richard yesterday, the day before, and he agreed with the numbers that I was saying that are capital, and he and Chuck can tell you an update on that. That's be better than in this format. You see, this makes sense to me that he's 88% of his expenditure budget. We'd be talking payroll and normal building expenditures, and anything that was going to be funded by the capital improvement bonds has been pulled out of here for simplicity's sake.
Say, Ron,
Yeah.
when you get a chance, just go, you don't have to do it here, but go and take a look at the detail on 149, because there's some things in there that I'm kind of like, I'm not.
On 149?
Yeah. Like earnings on investments and stuff like that. We don't have to do it here.
Yeah, I sent you the whole thing, right?
Yeah, just
earnings
take a look
on
at
the
it.
on the overage side, actually earnings on investments is one of the is one of the bigger ones. We got 1.8 additional income. Earnings on investments was one of the big ones there.
That's good.
It's not bad, right? And then
I don't know anybody that's getting that kind of return though.
yeah. And then, well, that school thing we mentioned has about 200 in. That kind of was not budgeted, and that had about 300 out. So that's about a net 100 out at this point in time on that 2176 thing. There was the interest, and then there's some, the rest of it I would describe as the deed tax that I mentioned, the deed tax that we collect on behalf of the state. It comes into this 149. committed to pulling it from there and putting it belongs in our Fund 81. We'll get around to that later. I think it belongs in our Fund 81. I just need to do it. So that's that more than explains the almost 1.9 over budget on the inside there for you.
And I'm assuming the 045 line auditing, that number at the end of 24 is also going to be construed up in a high percentage because of the lateness of the audits again.
Well, some of those bills, and since we just stick to the cash basis for simplicity, some of those bills, many of those bills have come. We've paid 5 now, and they've become entirely in 24. There's always some lag or delay that we budget for or expect in the budget process. But yeah, entirely all of them are happening now, and I think we're up to the final one now. I presume. Yeah.
Okay.
All right. Thank you. Okay. What I was thinking next, if we can move on from general, then is that road and bridge and social. We have a new format that I was talking with Commissioner Wilhite about. I have that in the packet as well. If you don't mind, we'll just skip to that, and we can
do that.
after a bit. Or my preference is just after a bit, and I'll just keep going through this blue one.
Okay.
Pick off the one. So like here's library. This is the Agassiz Library. We do budget for them, but their collection side is its own thing. They're a district, so we pay out what we get in terms of collections there. That's why it doesn't match to the number. Allow me to restate that. Well, you do pay out what they're budgeted for, but we collect what comes on the tax statements. That's why the revenue number is slightly off.
And that's
You see the 286 versus the 290.
That's for regional libraries, not including Crookston. Crookston pays their own Laurel fee.
I'm looking for help on that one. Fund 15 is the Agassiz Regional Library. Whether or not that includes Crookston or not.
It does not.
Yeah. All right. Oh, thank you. Okay.
Yeah, does not.
All right.
We levy everybody for it. Portion levy.
Not sure about that. Well,
Well, you wouldn't be because you don't do it. He does, but we don't apportion that. It's just a levy. It's part of the levy.
this is the
revenue side. You see the budget on revenues is the same as the budget on expenses. And my guess is that the shortfall in revenues is probably a share of the uncollected taxes that we didn't get. But we levy the entire county. We don't levy out. Crookston pays too.
Crookston does pay.
Yeah.
Okay.
There is also an offset of the city of Crookston and some others, the disparity reduction stuff that plays into that and reduces the county portion of the city of Crookston's levy. So
The city's responsible for the building, plus a fee to Laurel.
Right. But when we do the budget, we just say $290,000 is what we're going to levy.
Okay.
Because that's what they ask us for.
Okay. And then we're going to skip our public safety fund and our health fund because we have to look at in a couple clicks here on that. And then you can see Fund 48, that's the Crookston Transfer Station. Well under budget on the expenditure side and also noticeably under budget on the revenue side. It's a resulting net of almost $4,000 gain. I don't have a ton of detail on that for you. I mean, that's about all I can tell you. I was going to make mention of payroll under budgets in a bit here, so that pertains almost county-wide. Next one would be the resource recovery fund, just so you know that's our incinerator and the separation outfit out there, and 90% of expenditures, 82% of revenues. Cash basis resulting negative of 525. landfill fund, 91% and 96%. So that's a cash basis positive of 362. For a net for that Foston Erskine operation of a negative 150-ish. All right, down here then. Oh, I'm sorry. I should have scrolled that. I was looking at my paper and I didn't keep you up to speed. So there's that information on those
There you
64,
go.
65 funds.
Thought it was just me. Couldn't find it.
Yeah, I'm sorry. Yeah, I need to see the eye doctor, I guess. I'm going to do this every quarter. All right, and then the final piece of this blue bar then would be just to mention this with the ambulances. You do budget for these 3 ambulances as part of the levy. Each of those, please correct me if I misstate, Sam or Chuck, each of those has its own collection area. What they get goes in here is collections. And in this case, it's working very much like a special assessment or that type of fee. You know, what we collect does go out, and it doesn't match the number that we budgeted, but it's basically the ballpark. You know, we're talking off 4,000 or 5,000 or stuff like that. The final piece is Sam's monies there. Recorder's compliance, recorder's technology. There's a budget for them. Spend about 12,000. You'd actually budgeted to spend more like 100, but you know, if you need explanation, we'll get it. But he makes the call on what goes out of those.
Well, on that one, it was budgeted for our tax software that you'll be hearing about in a little bit.
Up next. All right. And that's really all I wanted to say about the blue one before we move on. If you need to stop or whatever, we'll do that. But so then, cash balances in graph format. Anybody mind if I skip that right now? I was hoping to go directly to these guys right here. This is sort of a new look option, you know, in response to Chairman Will Hyde's question about what they were using in Tri-County at their board meeting, where they could kind of put the whole thing in a single page synopsis. And so I did this, and I really kind of like it, but I didn't think it made, at least I didn't have a way in my head to put the entire county on a one page. And I thought this was much more reasonable to go with our major levied for and budgeted for funds and do it like this. And so what I did in this then was, I think property taxes should certainly stand on its own as a line. And basically this is basically all Rich's budgeted revenues, you know, at least the significant ones anyway. So you can see it as a big broad category, you know, that this is what he was thinking state aid would be. And then this is what the real number was on a cash basis. Didn't have a number in for this tax item, but there it is. And then the state other and federal other, again, probably didn't know that was coming. Refunds and reimbursements, yeah, significant category. And here's the offside, the other half of that coin that we were saying. The ARPA funds was budgeted 1.8 so far. Well, in the year, the year's done. We moved the 1.2 only, and I like to see that. I think, and then I grabbed up pay and benefits as a single category. I did that on all these ones. I think that's a nice broad category to take a peek at. 97.4%. That's everything pay overtime, Social Security, etc., all the way down to the health insurance. And then these next categories, none of them have pay or benefits in them because I put it all in line 1, but they are the categories that he has in his chart of accounts or that he utilizes. You know, this is his admin 10,300 at 300, and I pulled one item from there as I'm remembering now as I look at it. I thought that this road allotment remittance deserved its own line out of the normal revenues. He's got maintenance, construction, equipment, and shops. Total budget was, you know, break-even plan, actual budget. Actual budget The reality was 744, 691 positive number. And then this is almost my favorite part. I said, why not just do this? You can see the cash that he started with, and you can see the revenues, and you can see the expenditures, and these tied to those up above, and then you got ending cash. And that's how we got there. Okay, the next one up is social services. Again, property taxes gets its own line, and then major categories, state and federal fees. That that's basically what Karen had in there for big budgeted revenues. Karen and Randy. Again, pulling the pay and benefits, and this is, it's 92%, but it's a lot of dollars that they're under budget on pay and benefits. And my assumption is that's mostly vacancies, unfilled positions. You guys had one too. There's a $25,000 variance in your own budget for 23, but that, this is so much more. And like I said, I was just rushing these out. I don't consider this an adequate category description, expense type 1 or whatever, but I will update that, but I would need help from social, to explain. But they do have two broad they have two broad divisions. Social services, the huge one, and income maintenance is this, relatively small within that. Those are their categories. I know they do regular reporting to you as well, but I think we could continue with this report if we choose to, and I can get a better descriptor in place for those 4 items. So again, this was budgeted to spend 500,000 more than it brought in. It actually went the other way. It brought in 435 more. I guess primarily because of that paid benefits bucket. Being as well under budget like that with an ending balance here. All right, on this one, I did have to go with 2 pages for sheriff, I thought. It's causing me to stop. So we've talked about this before, but I mean, we do give them what they budget, the levy dollars, like to make it break even. Like when you saw Rich's there was breaking even, that we give them that money and throughout the year so that, they have it. We have no plan to take it to do that.
Right.
All right, so here's his major categories. A lot of different state funding going on there. Motor vehicles, it stands out as kind of a big one, but I'm sure there's a reason why that all occurred in 23. All those sales occurred in 23, and they maybe didn't know that in November of 22 that was going to be that big. But some of it's more predictable than that, I guess. Here's an ARPA money that they did budget, but I couldn't see any sign of having spending it. So I don't know if they're going to spend that in the future or not, but I thought it was large enough to point it out here.
That was their 911 stations, right?
I have to go back and look.
No, I think so.
All right. And so again,
because I don't think it was that much.
Yeah.
Well, it's straight from the line item. So there's items coded 5577, the total at. But we can easily call it up. Pay and benefits again makes its own good category. I can see it's well under there. Again, we know they've had vacancies. I can't give you the details on that, but that must be primarily what's going on there. And then for this one, I thought the sheriff itself could kind of have some breakout because there are some pretty significant line areas that you can see. There's vehicles, there's leased vehicles, but also all the setup costs.
Yeah.
All right. And even that other category is still pretty big, but I kind of had to draw the line somewhere. But I thought this makes a decent breakout. You can kind of see a few of the major items that they spend on and budget for. And then after 200, I just went with this full departmental breakout. Like he's got a 202 for boat and water. And obviously there's a pretty big one, and hence 911. And that, well, you can tell you there's something that didn't get spent there too. I think it was a federal, I can't remember. I made a mistake. But. So I pulled a couple of them together. This body armor DTF is pretty minor, so I thought, well, those can be together for this presentation today at least. you know, civil process, this item, they don't budget for it, but it's money moving within the fund. They collect and then they pay themselves for their fair share of those services. Okay. So, yeah, again, and then since the jail process, the costs associated with the jail come out of that fund as well. Yeah, that seems to work fine as far as I'm concerned. So what you see here on jail cost, Tri-County Corrections, it's our Department 250 and Fund 16. And again, that it matches exactly here because we knew what the property taxes were going to, excuse me, let me start. We knew what they were going to charge us for the jail because that's a number that, you know, we would have got from Paul. And then we knew what they were going to pay us as rents and leases. And then we had tax dollars to make it zero out.
That rents and leases line, is that strictly a debt service or is there?
It is, sir. Yes, exactly what that is. That's where the number comes from. It's the debt service for the year on the jail bonds. And, you know, there was a couple different ways to do that or look at that. This is what I chose way back in the day. And I still think it makes sense that we put the rent here to offset the cost that they're charging us. And then over in our debt service fund or the Department 113 in general fund is where we pay the debt service expenditures. And then we have its own standalone debt service levy. And you'll see that when we do the summary or whatever, that 113 actually pays the debt. This fund is actually paying the jail cost that they bill us for.
We're not charging them or anything for heat, light, and water and such.
We aren't? Yes, yeah, we
Yeah.
sure are.
Are we?
We talked about that.
Yeah,
Yeah.
Richard is. I would say Richard takes care of that,
Yeah.
Yeah.
and then
Because there was a large increase.
Yeah.
that actually, you know, that goes into Richard's department where all those maintenance costs and utility costs are spent, which is the Department 111 up in Fund 1. I'm happy to go back if you want to look at it, but you can see it ran under budget by a few points for sure. That's where they come and go on our books. Yeah, as far as, you know, Paul's net need is reflected, or whatever, Tri-County, their net need is this number that they give us from that worksheet that crew or board puts together, that 5916. Does that help?
This helps me a lot. We're not
Yes.
trying to keep it
Oh.
on those big lines. It's hard for my brain to keep going. This is nice. I like it.
Breaks it down.
All right, so similarly here, we were just able to tie out down at the bottom. Here's where that fund started with. Well, I did skip this line, didn't I? It was budgeted to be 250 at Tri-County, use fund balance to pay that. That's what the budget for the year was, and so that's what happened. The 250, right?
Sure.
More went out than came in. So that you can see that here's the bottom line net because the sheriff's operation did in fact run in the black significantly. And I better scroll back up because that's probably confusing. See, the sheriff's had budgeted fund balance use of almost 700. The reality was this. So that's pretty big difference. And if you take the 250 out of it that we did not budget for our jail, so that we intentionally were going to use that, those numbers match exactly. So that is what happened there. Okay. Maybe not 562 to the good. So here's where it started the year. Roll all those numbers up together on the ins and outs, and there's where it ends. Okay, one more. A similar thing with public health. Various kinds of payments. Small ARPA reimbursement there for wages. And then again, just her main categories. I'm sure most of you have heard her say these categories a few times. I think it's okay to look at that level. If we want to drill down more, it's never a problem. But again, well under budget on pay and benefits again. So that's kind of the story. Countywide, I guess. And then that's what their fund did. Okay. If there's no questions or whatever, I'll just roll back to sort of the cash presentation, I guess that we can say. I mean, we talked about the cash on several funds. I'm gonna have to get my paper here. So, but this is this familiar like quarterly cash thing. The point of that is so you can see how we look compared to that same month in prior years. And this is, all 3 months of the final quarter. One of the more significant numbers here is the general fund. And I've got these categories reducing the general fund, which is 9,885,000 in December is the cash number. But some of these things I felt worth pointing out because you really can't just spend anything you want. You got two little balances of capital, not so capital improvement bond balances. You can jump through some hoops and spend them for a lot of different things. Quite a bit of it is already going to be done now at this point in time. We're talking about December 23. The 24 is already taking care of a lot of those. Then the ARPA fund balance, again, that's pretty flexible, but I feel like it's worth noting, that it is a specific kind of money that you do at least have to be ready to jump through the hoops to spend it. So if you pull those out, we've dipped under 6 million in our year-end general fund balance, and that's as low as I think it should go in that regard. Accounting for in your head the fact that a lot of that money is ARPA, we can kind of do as you please with, but it doesn't really have any reserves beyond the ARPA, in my opinion, that should be tapped into at that point. And then some of these other funds are just, much less of a concern in terms of they're just money in and out for other entities. Let's see. But since I didn't do a special report on Fund 64 and 65, 38, 34, I could, as long as I'm here, point that out.
That investment control line, is that basically interest?
No, sir, but great question. That's mostly Steiner, or John, the Fund 20 up there that you see. It's called financial assurance. And that's the post-closure landfill required by rules, state rules or whatever, that they set aside a certain amount each year and accumulate it in this way where they can't touch it. And so that investment control is primarily that, and then and then a few other money market accounts that we have that pertain to like estates or whatever, money that we've got that we're sitting on that belong to other parties. And the reason this is really just the way Arla chose to do it. This is off the cash book. And since I'm kind of doing her job now, I'm finally understanding it better than ever. But this is what's off her cash. Her cash book handles the active funds, and that's just the way they've always done it. And so you see this here, off cash book items, the petty cash accounts, and this investment control. And it's a unique set of things. It's always been relatively small compared to our overall thing. But if the bulk of that would go in 20 if we were to adjust it to where it belongs, and the rest I presume you'd call it a general fund or an agency fund. Maybe I'll sort that out too. In the next year or two, we'll see. But that is a super question. That's why that one sits there like that and always has. Okay, so if you think it's worth it or whatever, I mean, 38 shows as a zero at year end on this one. 38 is the capital improvement fund used for the solid waste, environmental services expansion type project. It's in the hole at 1,171,000. It owes that money to Fund 48, which you can see has 2.8 million. Presume that's right. And then moving down to 64, the Boston is at this point in time 685 in the hole. Owes that money to the landfill, which has 785. So just wanted to say that about those 4 funds because it's always been our preference or whatever. I show them as zeros on this report. And if you roll them all together, that would be an indicator of the solid waste and environmental services total can. I think the other thing would be this. It seems like I'm probably over my time anyway, but I did include those graphic things on the fund balance. You got lots of different dates of cash balance, cash balances in the funds, like the general fund. And you can see it in the bar graph there for you. And that's for your review, and if it raises questions or whatever, we could try and get after those for you. You know, the blue is the current year that we're talking about anyway. You can see how sometimes you can see the green bar turns into the blue bar. Then when it gets to January, we roll back around, right? The red bar goes to the blue bar. That's kind of the way I look at it. It's like, where were we and where did we proceed as we went into the next year? So we have those for each of these major funds. Yeah, the fund increases are, due to those doing better than budgeted, and in some cases they're probably still due to receiving of things like CARES and ARPA funds. The increases are. If I should take a minute on this too. I mean, it was requested or whatever was talked about with Chairman Wellite that it was needed to do anyway. That Chuck's established this Parks Fund at the end of the year of this year we're talking about 23, and here's how it shapes up on paper. We have these 3 years rolled together, creating the Maple portion and then the Tilbert portion, and then a combined fund for a balance on 12/23/31. Those 3 years, the results of those 3 years have the park fund balance at the 59,285. And then I just thought it wouldn't hurt to throw in the 24 budget as well. If the 24 budget, went as planned, that you could anticipate a number more like 139 in the park fund balance at that point in time. But of course, those results are just in the budget at this point.
Is there a name for that roadside on Maple Lake?
East Shore?
East Shore.
I don't know if we have that in our accounting anywhere. We do not, that I know of.
I'm not even sure is it in Parks or Highway when it gets over to that?
I think it might be, and we'll have to get together.
Yeah, I thought that was, it was built with highway, right? The adjustment,
I believe so.
okay. So it might just be under highway.
Yeah, we don't have anything uniquely in our accounting for that. I know that. We do have.
Is it called a park? Or just East Shore? No, the recreational areas.
It's just called East Shore.
Yeah, just the
But I
East
mean-
Shore.
Well, it doesn't have any camping,
No.
but it's I consider it a park, I guess.
It's sure used like a park.
Exactly. So
But
we'll
there's no
need
camping.
to.
A lot of people utilize it now that it's been redone.
But yes.
But there's not going to be any revenue from it.
No.
Maintenance costs, and if it falls under the highway, then yay, let's leave her. It's a beautiful place. It's a great addition.
So that's basically all I had. I guess I'm digging for just one final number. That was, because it's kind of relative to all of it, is that, the funds are in good shape and they did well relative to budget. Much of it is payroll and benefits. I have 2.199 million under budget in the broad category of payroll budget countywide. A lot of that we talked about was in the sheriff, and a lot of it was also in the social services. So, I mean, that's the number, and it's good news that the funds are doing well. And then there's significant fund balance use in the 24 budget plan already for general and safety and social through on. So really, thoughts or questions on that? And I'll get out of the way for the next one.
It'll be very helpful.
That was very good, yes.
Thank you.
Coffee?
Yeah, I could have a coffee. Yes. Looks like we have about a 5-minute break here.
I've been saying that, but
Yeah. They don't like what they're hearing.
no.
Have you mentioned, by the way, filing dates?
I have not yet. Would you like me to?
I think you should.
May 21st,
Yeah.
4th. I've been watching it.
It'll be in the newsletter
Okay.
as well. But yeah, so it will open on the 21st of May and goes for 2 weeks.
I'm the only one that has to file, right?
Oh,
What? You? Me and you? And you?
Very.
Yeah.
Mhm.
With that, Joan and Warren try to keep open some canvassing dates.
Whatever.
Yeah, well, I think
Because
out
we
of
need people who are not
Yeah.
the
See, I
ballot.
wanted to do it, dang it, and I can't. I can't do
Next time.
Yeah. Well, we'll see. What if I don't make it? Well, you have to put up with another newbie.
Annabelle Jones, Property Records, has got one item here for us to consider.
She sure does. And I apologize. This reads like it's 3 motions. I actually intended it to read as 2 motions.
Okay.
We are in the process of upgrading our tax software. There has been a lengthy contract negotiation involved. MCCC has been involved in that contract negotiations with Manatron or Aumentum, that is the tax software that we currently have, and we are choosing to proceed with that tax software and the upgrade. With that upgrade, there is an additional cost due for the first year that we were unaware of when the contract negotiations started. So right now we're looking at, Sam has budgeted the last several years at what our original contract cost was quoted to us. For our first year upgrade costs, we are going to owe an additional $96,960 over what we have originally budgeted. So my first motion would be asking that you would approve that expenditure of $96,960 to cover the remaining upgrade cost for the first year.
Is there a motion to consider?
I so move.
Is there a second?
Second.
Okay. Questions? Comments?
This was budgeted, yes.
Yep. So we had originally budgeted $75,000 a year for the past 2 years.
Sure.
With the new contract costs since our original negotiations started, that cost has increased. So our total upgrade cost for the first year is that $246,960.
When this started, there wasn't really a number out there. So when I took over and started budgeting, I knew this was coming, but I didn't know the exact amount. Figuring roughly 300,000, but not knowing when it would also come due.
Yep.
So with the 75,000, I was putting aside each year in preparation for either changing or upgrading with Aumentum or possibly changing our software company. But we've chosen to stick with our current company.
Anything else? If not, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries.
I'll go back down to that when we're done. And then the second motion would be asking for a motion for the board to sign the board ratification statement that I have to return to MCCC, authorizing me to enter into that contract with Aumentum Technologies for the implement of the upgrade and then going forward maintenance and support of the new software.
So it does include their maintenance agreement.
Yep.
So moved.
Is there a second?
Second.
Second.
This is the actual contract here. I don't know if anybody wants to read any of that.
I just read it. Yeah, I'm a speed reader.
Yeah.
Your
And
approval of it there, Paul?
I should have brought you up to this page here
There
during
you
the
go.
original motion. So this is what we're looking at for a total upgrade cost. So this is a year one cost for Polk County, and then next year we will budget for the 101,500 or for the next 2 years to cover those additional upgrade costs. So.
Correct. Any further questions? If not, all those in favor say aye.
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 Opposed? Motion carried.
Perfect. That's all I
Enjoy
have
the
for-
software
Well,
if you can.
I will.
But
I
it does
believe I will.
simplify. It does simplify.
It is going to be a significant upgrade to the
Yes.
current software that we're using. So I've sat through several demos from the company of different modules, and then at our MCCC conference in June, there'll be a whole host of demos for the new software. So
You're comfortable with it?
absolutely. Yep.
Love to hear that.
They definitely know what they want for this stuff, don't they?
No, exactly.
All right. Thank you.
All right. Thank you much. I believe that concludes our agenda.
Mhm.